Hey, it's me, Tommy. I've got some great news. Fujifilm decided to sponsor me with an X-T3 and a 16-55mm f2.8 so I can keep making videos for you guys about it and about how to use it and some of the features that it has. Today we're going to take a look at all of the Fujifilm X-T3's different film simulations and f-log, do some comparisons, and I'm going to try and decide which one I like the best for different situations. They're called film simulations and not picture profiles, and I think that's appropriate for this camera because the way the X-Trans sensor was created, when you really push the sensor and introduce noise into your footage, it looks a lot more like film grain than it would digital noise, and that's just because of the way they designed their sensor, and I think it looks really nice. Now, we're not really pushing the noise too much here in this scenario, but I would like to mention that I don't really like the first few film simulations we have here, normal Velvia, or standard Velvia and Astia. But I did find myself really liking the way classic Chrome looked with its enhanced contrast in the shadows and its muted colors. ProNeg High and ProNeg Standard are also both very nice, but I don't think I'll still ever see myself using them. ProNeg Standard is just like a less saturated ProNeg High. But once we get into the Eterna, Eterna is pretty much the way I like to see my footage before I add any color grades, and it looks great. Now, I didn't spend too much time working across the Acros and Monochrome profiles because I don't really film in black and white, but I've got examples of all the different settings of Acros and Monochrome for you here. And like Monochrome, I don't really mess with Sepia too much. Ooh, but once we get into f-log, I got an example here for you at 100 megabits per second, 200 and 400. So we're going to go through those now. And before you apply any color grade, you can see that they don't really look any different from one another, and that's the way it should, because you haven't pushed any of the colors yet. That's not a good demonstration of what f-log is supposed to look like. But once we apply the Fujifilm supplied LUT for Eterna onto f-log at 100 megabits per second, and then put that next to the 400 megabits per second f-log, you can already see a pretty big difference in the skin tones and the saturation of those bougainvilleas next to me. And to my surprise, Eterna at 100 megabits per second looks shockingly close to 400 megabits per second f-log with the Eterna LUT. And when I grade it to my liking, it looks great, and I can save a ton of space on my hard drive. Now, I did all of these examples in 8-bit 420. Now, I only did grading on the f-log and the Eterna examples earlier, and I'm going to do that again here. But I'm not really trying to demonstrate the depth of all of the color information in this video. That will be another video that I've got coming up. Right now, I'm just trying to demonstrate what you can get straight out of camera. And 8-bit, 10-bit, I mean, that's going to look very similar, if not the same, if you're not doing any grading on a majority of the profiles. On top of that, even if I did have a side-by-side 10-bit 422 next to the 8-bit file here and I just uploaded them without any grading, YouTube's compression would definitely make sure that you wouldn't see the difference. All of my examples were filmed in an ISO 640 at a minimum, and that's because the minimum ISO you can film at well in f-log is 640. It has to do with how the X-T3 handles dynamic range. If you're interested in how the dynamic range setting operates and why you can set it to 100% and 400% and what the difference is, I already did a whole video on that. There's a link to it in the description of this video and also a card in the corner. And this will be the last outdoors example before we go into the studio. In this one, we're going to have a much bigger look at the sky and see how the light blues are affected. So if you've been watching this whole video up until now, you can probably already tell which one is my favorite. After playing with all of them so intimately throughout this video, I've only used them in their default settings. I haven't changed any contrast or highlights or options within the camera. All the different simulations I've displayed here were at their complete neutral default settings. I really like the way Eterna looks, and I think it grades really easily with hardly any modification to look exactly the way I want it to look in pretty much every scenario. Outdoors, indoors, in the studio, right here. This is what I'm looking at right now. So basically everything that I've read online and listened to other people say about their own X-T3s, Eterna is an awesome film simulation, and they added it to the X-T3 for a reason. They're trying to take over the video creators market, the content creation market. And with such a little powerhouse camera making such a huge splash into the pool of available cameras, I'm surprised I'm not hearing more content creators talk about the X-T3. Maybe they just don't know about it yet. It's by far my favorite APS-C camera right now. So clearly my favorite film simulation is the Eterna film simulation at its default settings because it's so close to the way I want footage to actually look, and just with a little bit of tweaking, it's perfect and it saves me a lot of time. Also, when I record at 100 megabits per second, the file sizes are significantly smaller than when I record F-Log at 400 megabits per second. Speaking of 400 megabits per second, I'm also going to be creating a video showing the differences between 8-bit, 10-bit 420 and 10-bit 422 externally recorded footage, and if you actually need to do that. Just basically kind of showing everything that the Fuji X-T3 is capable of. If you want to see that video, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. And thank you again, Fujifilm, for sending out the X-T3 and the 16 to 55mm f2.8. I couldn't have made this video without them. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.